to not be able to experience what you want out of that for 5 to 10 years,
Yeah.
if that's appealing to you, then yeah, go for it. And but otherwise, there's a lot of people who already did it, and they're waiting for you to show up
Yeah.
and do it with them. And so, and then you can just get to work. You don't have to build the whole foundation. It's just brick and mortar.
Yeah.
Like somebody already has that done and a beautiful place that you could align with. But like
Yeah.
let's talk about what you're but if somebody's made that move and is invested, all right, you need my help. You're doing it, then I'm not going to talk you out of it. Let's start with discovering what you've been avoiding thinking about, which is
Oh,
really what my work come down to in a big way is yeah, yeah, just guiding people to not make the mistakes that come with starting naively,
mm,
starting without those deep questions asked of
yeah.
themselves. They go right at looking for the features of the place they want to buy or move into. What can this place do for me?
Mm,
And that's how so many people start, either as seekers or founders. But like, yeah, that personal discovery has to be the foundation. Otherwise, everything else is built on assumptions, as we've learned at this stage of our life.
yeah,
Assumptions suck.
they really do. Well, that's a perfect intro for our conversation. I just clicked record. I was like, this is
Okay, great.
great. Yeah, so Jason, it's a pleasure to be chatting with you. And I like that we were just having our personal conversation and it got to the point where I'm like, this is exactly, I think, what we're here to discuss. And I've known you for what you think now, 4 or 5 years from that
Yeah,
event, a little
yeah.
longer.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
it was
and
22. 4 years.
yeah, just always saw your passion from every angle of the land stewardship movement, providing people with blueprints of community owners agreements and handbooks, and now kind of different guides to help almost Sherpa people, if I will, who are coming to Costa Rica and other countries looking for land in some part of their dream, but as you were saying, looking for something inside that I think is a little deeper question that precedes their um, desired search for other kinds of safety. So yeah, I would love you to share a little bit about yourself and kind of what lights you up, but from the perspective of today, because I think there's so much great info. Me and you have talked about it on your podcast and in the past on eco villages and land movements and people moving here and stewardship. But I think the interesting part is what's happening now today on the ground. What excites you? Where do you see people, or individually or as a collective? Yeah, and we could just riff a bit.
Great. Well, I'll try to keep my intro short because, yeah, Regeneration Nation Costa Rica podcast. If you check there, you'll see me talking about myself plenty. You sign up for my newsletter, and you'll learn my story, my about page on my website. Um, what I'm what's the most alive with me in my work right now is I design and guide tours for Eco Village Tours. They're a
Mm,
global Eco Village tour company, and I'm contracted to design and guide their tours here in Costa Rica. Um, we're coming into my third season. I'm doing 4 tours next year. I'm visiting 23, I think, communities over those 4 tours, plus 5 bioregional panel discussions that I'm putting together. I can tell you more about that, which is really where I transition to in my ideas of what is an eco village, like.
mm,
So I definitely like to get into that. But so with the eco village tours, it's taken the 5 years or so of my work with Regeneration Nation Costa Rica and kind of just like you said, I've tried lots of things. I'm trying to
yeah.
serve this movement. I had my own place for a dozen years. We didn't succeed to the degree that we wanted, really, to
That's where me and you
mention.
had our first conversations, I think, in subject matter.
Yeah. And so that's when I invited you to come to the regenerative business incubator for landowners and to speak to these people who are like, I want to have a regenerative business with my land, like I want to
Yeah.
do something integral, but that pays the bills, I call on people like you and others to come and speak to them to like really not tell them what to do, but to share these stories about what has hung people up before. Because what one of the core things that drives me after not succeeding and then going back to the States for a couple of years for my son and learning like just taking the thing that I pushed away all my life, business,
Hmm.
technology, all that stuff. And I just decided I got to learn how to do this. And so I built a website, learned how to do it all, and later translated that into the permaculture business design course I created last year.
Yeah.
And really, my motivation with all of this is once I started learning these 21st century conventional business practices, it's just like, man, this is permaculture. I mean,
Hmm.
yeah, any of these things can be abused, but if done right, automations and all this setting up good foundations that serve more people with less of my need for input, I like these ideas. And
Yeah.
I think more communities and permaculture farms really will do well to let go of the taboos that kind of pushed them into that field,
Right.
and like Buddha and many other ancient tales will talk about, use the good thorn to take out the bad thorn, but then throw both the thorns away, and
Hmm.
it's like taboos help us realign our worldview and life patterns. But then once we got our thing going, you don't have to carry all that weight of anti-establishmentarianism to all degrees, and so I've made my mission with the podcast to be bridging these grassroots movements with the more organizational aspects
Cool.
of what makes an organization succeed. So that's how I got to, and then Eco Village tours. I drove 2 school buses down here
Yeah.
from the States. I wanted to drive tours like this to take people to these places because what I found in owning my own place
Hmm.
was that two things. One of the biggest things we need is each other. So we need to really connect this network of rogue projects and start communicating and sharing more, And that's why like the mastermind programs that you and I are doing are so valuable, where
Yeah.
it really isn't a teaching, but more of a sharing. And the other thing that I discovered was, we need to up our organizational game so that when we do get people, because we all need resources in projects like these land projects, and when the resources get there, how ready are you to be a magnet for it, receive it, and use it well? Because otherwise you're just losing energy out of your system. And that's one of the main things permaculture tells you to do is find where you have gaps in your system, where are you losing energy, and fill that before you start building things to put more in it, you
Yeah.
know? And we did that on our farm after our first few years of failure. And we took out the permaculture design methodology and we designed our community living agreements and our shareholding member agreements and created contracts for rentals and all these other pieces because we studied through creating a life together and the different, big communities, long lasting communities that she describes there. We looked at what, she said these agreements are important. And I went and downloaded everything I could find. This was back
Yeah.
in 2012 or 13. And we created ours and it's like, no, this is smart. We need
Hmm.
real, legit agreements because when people
Yeah.
show up and they don't know what you're offering, they're not going to stay long.
Well, let's
And
double click that for 1 second because I think
sure.
that it's a wealth of wisdom within just that one point. And I noticed, by the way, for me also, when I like have been consuming these different podcasts and written material, I used to consume a lot and very quickly. And I'm like, whoa, let's go very slow with each of these pieces. And the first one that you said really blew me away because it's the foundational piece after all these books on community and Dominaher and places, the agreements and the original contracts of what you're here, who you're going to show up as when conflict emerges, legal stuff. It's critical. And I've heard a lot of people talk about that in conferences, but when you simply sent me a link, I forget what it was, to a thing you did where you put together different community bylaws and different agreements to study them and to share them. I sent it with to Leap Forward, to the nonprofit I work with that's also community based and I've shared with you about. And they're like, wow, it's so simple and so good that like somebody is looking at these agreements, not the quality of them themselves. That could be talked about in academic classes.
Everyone is so vastly different,
Yeah.
which is an important detail to pick up on. They have to be
Yeah.
personal.
So
There's
they have
not
to
a
be
model that
personal.
works for everybody.
Yeah. And let me ask you then, when you guide people through that process, we have agreements that leap forward, right? And I find the interesting part was when I looked at the agreements and my personal values in life, and I had to rejournal like what I stand for, because I'm like, oh, if I'm signing an agreement today, I want to see who I am today. Maybe something
Yep.
changed from my Burning Man days. And cool, I looked at it and I'm like, this agreement and who I am, works. And so I signed it and I joined Leap Forward. Um, there for me was maybe a gap in 2, 3 years where I didn't think about those agreements until starting to see myself and other members of our community really getting called out and saying, like, hey, you said this. Like, if you're going to be confronted, you surrender. Like, this is, you don't fight. That's one of our rules that, like, hey, if you're hitting a wall and you're being presenced, like Jason, like you're acting out of line, you don't hang up on Zoom or you don't,
Mhm.
you have to say, okay, I'm here to receive it, whatever. Maybe I'll have a response after. But then, when I started to see how agreements are held and legal agreements and my friend getting fined for his dog in an eco village and seeing the reality of that, I think many founders understand in their head these things that they want, but they don't actually think about them both as founders and as members. And same with the people buying land. They kind of look at it and they're like, this looks pretty good. It's like in an area that I feel good, and these people are conscious, I guess. And so it's like I think if people slowed down and had the resources that you provide them and really looked at it and said, first, what are my agreements? I don't care if you're buying a plot of land or founding a community. What are my values? What are my agreements? What's critical? What are non-negotiables? What are semi? But then also like personally or professionally, what happens when those agreements aren't upheld? Like at the HOA meetings I went to at an early eco village.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm like, oh my God, it's cool that everyone signed this, but now how do you enforce it? And this guy and this woman are fighting about something that I don't even know the resolution to. It's like a really sensitive subject about like privacy, security. Um, so anyway, I just wanted to ask you, like, what do you feel is the best way for someone to navigate this who is listening and is like, oh shit, this is valuable for me. Um, where do they start? Let's say.
For navigating which aspect exactly?
For navigating, whether you're someone looking to live in an eco village or you're someone creating some project like this that has the sensitivity of human agreements, how do you navigate one enforcing these things? And how, as a person, do you, maybe in a recap sense, like, do you navigate finding, let's say, like you do an eco village tour? Do people have to fill out like what are their values, what are they looking for, like how do you analyze their needs and how do they or help them to analyze their needs,
Mhm.
you know?
Okay. So, ha handling handling conflict starts before the conflict starts.
Mm,
That's why I'm doing this work to help communities create really good communication tools to take the time to ask themselves deep questions about themselves and to take the time to understand the people they want to come and what's important to them, and then to craft statements that clarify the highest intentions with I hopefully with my help realistic expectations
mm,
um as to like how do we what are we offering here? And when that's done well, part of marketing isn't just attracting who you want, it's um kind of detracting or pushing away people that you don't want,
right.
right? So there's a balance that needs to be struck in those initial documents. Most of these big communities that want to sell lots fast, they err on the side of not enough agreements. They
Mm,
do the basic building guidelines and maybe no chemical sprays or some other things in an HOA, but there's an attitude of, I don't want to have to police this, so I'm
Yeah,
not going to include it. And then we'll allow our members to come and deal with that later. And I know some communities that are dealing with it later,
yeah.
and it's a very challenging road. So, in the beginning, if you have some more, if you have deeper clarity as to like, what is our ethos? What is our culture? What's our practice? You will have less conflict later because the people who are in conflict with that aren't signing the bottom line.
Mm.
So you got to be more patient. You got to be ready for some people to not want to sign the bottom line when at a time where you really wish someone would sign the bottom line.
Well said.
And I've
So
seen
money
people go
drives
too
that
far
decision. Yeah,
where they've got a neurotic list of control mechanisms. And that's not going to get you anyone signing the bottom line either.
got it.
Right. So we want to find that place of creating a container that people feel safe in, yet not making all of the decisions. However, any decisions that are not clear to be made in the onset need a path described as to how that decision is going to be made.
Hmm.
And so that's where your decision making process comes in. Your model for decision making comes in, and whatever you decide on at the founding is not likely to be what you end up with 5, 3, 10 years later, because it's
What
got
are
to go through
examples of
iterations.
those?
Yeah.
Like those kind of decisions, just to bring it tangible. Like, what are one or two examples that like people have of these kind of decisions?
Well, I mean, like the difference between a board that makes decisions for the HOA and or a sociocratic model where there's different circles of influence make that are empowered to make decisions and bring it to the center group for only key decisions, or completely egalitarian models where everybody's got to vote on everything. Those are
Yeah,
like a few of the extreme type of things. And then within that, there's all these ability to blur the edges and borrow from the others and have stacking systems at different levels and of influence. And so the conflict thing starts with making sure that people are signing on the bottom line in on the same page.
meaning they like
Meaning
they're
that
on the
they
same
feel like
page.
they're on the same page, that there's something on the page that they're agreeing to that's meaningful to their day-to-day life.
And
And
so, yeah,
that's where
okay,
the pet policies,
right.
children stuff, conflict navigation, decision making models at different scales for different types of decisions. Taking the time to say that now we get to the conflict moment.
Okay,
Everybody's relatively on the same page. We understand we're all good how we're going to work out. Now something happened.
yeah.
Okay, well, ideally, there's a clear path. Okay, we're gonna go. We've already identified that part of our community ethos is that we always have elected or chosen a two or more people that are the wisdom circle, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just say that at this level of conflict, this is the best protocol. At this level of conflict, these
Great.
people got to be contacted. This is the method for requesting mediation. It doesn't have to be over complex,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
those
It's a great
first two or
example.
three steps of
Mm-hmm.
what do we do now?
Mm-hmm.
Who do we go to? If there's no question there, then the buildup of intensity has less of a chance to become degenerative.
And wait, one question there. So I think that's one of the most simple practical examples, like you just gave of the Wisdom Council. That's awesome. So almost like in a tech problem, like escalate this to the Wisdom Council, because there is no resolution. But I've also, you and I have been part of things and have discussed where I don't know, to some extent, there is a codependence of people, in my opinion, when looking at community, where community has to solve your problems. Okay. A healer has
Mhm.
to fix your thing, a this and that. And, you know, like at Leap Forward, we work on this a lot where it's like, no, you guys resolve it first. Like you're adults. You're acting like kids with prehistoric wiring, that are this, that. But like, to some extent, I do think that there has to be more training, and there is now emerging of like the invisible structure training, but of how people can really look at what are like, oh, this person in front of me, feel empathy. What pattern are we acting out if we're in conflict? It's hundreds of psychology things, from the triangle of conflict to whatever. Wow, I'm the victim, they're the perpetrator. Okay, they're mom, I'm son. It doesn't matter, but I do think that it's time to really equip people in resilience of what it means to be a community, which all I've learned at Leap Forward is that I don't know a lot, but I have to rub with my community. We do it in projects. We do nonprofit projects together. And then when something comes up, when I like told one of my best friends who I've worked with before, I said, "Hey, I feel like your assistant today. I don't feel like we're working together. I feel you're kind of like, and it's only in the projects that I feel that rub. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go to mommy, who runs the program, and be like, no, it's not good. I don't want to work with this person. No, like I have to look my friend in the eye and say, hey, like I see the pattern I'm playing out here, and I care about you, and I don't want this. But that's because over 5 years we've started to also care about each other at Leap Forward. And I come to some communities and I'm like, whoa, even in some Burning Man camps, I've seen people have those bonds before they go start an eco village where I'm like, oh, there is something, except Burning Man, I don't want to go into, was a different kind of bond. But yeah, I think there is a part of people building resilience between each other that's really beautiful and that could emerge now. I just wanted to interject with that.
What comes up for me hearing that is the yes and yes, the just community living on no matter what ask however you want. If that's interesting to you and that's what you want to engage in, welcome to your personal growth path,
Right,
right?
right, right.
Because that's what's happening. And the only reason that's the case is because we're all at a different point in our path.
Mm.
And permaculturists had the wisdom at some point to really popularize a fourth ethic, which is transition care.
Tell me about that.
We've got the ethics of earth care, people care, fair share. Fair share is often also communicated as future care.
Okay.
And so if it's not caring for the people, the earth, its inhabitants, and sharing equitably both with those in our vicinity and influence and future generations, then we may be practicing something short of permaculture. Okay, that's the foundation. The principles, the strategies, everything is on top of that. That's the foundation, those ethics. It's recognized though, and in the permaculture field, one thing that pushes people away from permaculture often is an elitistness. Oh, you're just practicing good organics. It's not permaculture. Um, okay, then let's keep helping each other practice better permaculture. But there's also, oh, an ideal that we hold is minimizing our consumer impact and carbon footprint, et cetera, et cetera. And then you just did that thing. Like that is so counterproductive to
Mm.
be judgmental against people who aren't saints yet, because none of us are.
Right.
So I think for the health of caring for the people, caring for the earth, it's in the four agreements too. Do your best.
Mm.
And I think that that ties together with transition care, that we honor that, yes, you are a unique human, Ed, which is why people flock and love you, is because you're doing the work and you're what you share in your emails and your writings and everything. It really exposes that doing the work is important to you. You're not a normal human in that,
Mm.
right? And so when we are doing these communities where we're importing people from all over the world in different
Yeah.
cultures and backgrounds and traumas and everything else, yeah, sure, some of them are doing the work. Probably all of them are doing some work, otherwise they wouldn't have chosen to be there.
Mm.
And we create conflict navigation mechanisms in order to walk each other home,
Right.
because we're all on the journey, and we're all fallible, and we
Yeah.
all have the times where we blow our top and forget our best training. And so that's what those are there for.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So I did want to also touch on one thing because I really like admired the eco village tours that you were doing. It's something that I did like twice, or 3 times with friends, and I was like, this is great. Like someone should be doing this because look, I have a lot of friends here who move and they want to, like you said, live in an eco village and buy some land, and I'm like, no, please don't do that. Like rent a house. See if you like even this area, let alone this eco village. And
Mhm.
often I find that what's cool is some of these areas, you name it in Costa Rica, the South in Vita Dominical, Hochal, or Tinamaste, or Chiripo, or Nosara. I'm like, wow, all my friends are like striving to build eco village, but the town, like the neighborhood, like if you look at a checklist, there's Waldorf schools or alternative schools, there's great restaurants, organic markets. I'm like, wow, this is everything of an eco village, but in fact, it's more of a neighborhood or some kind of urban mix, whatever. So I do think I do think that the tours and letting people see what they're going to move into potentially is critical. You know, I've had friends change a lot in this country, and I hate when they have to sell something or go through like, they're like, hey, do you have a good moving company? I'm like, did you guys split up or what happened? And they're like, no, no, we got to leave this place. And I'm like, okay, okay. But yeah, I guess tell me more about that and the handbook you created too. Those are like the handbook was also something that piqued my interest.
Okay. Well, I think what you're touching on first there is the bioregionalism piece. And
Yeah.
and I'll touch on the book real quick, just to since you referenced it, because bioregional is something I want to sit with for a minute.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah, after doing 4 tours over 2 years, people were asking me, what are you learning? What are you learning? What are you learning? I got these answers that seem to come out frequently while on the tours and then after. Well, on
Yeah.
the tours, really, I talk about it a lot. After the tour, I'm like, wow, I don't even know where to start. How do I answer
Right.
that question? Right.
Right.
So eventually, after the first tour this year, I started writing a blog. What I learned about the Eco Village tours.
Hmm.
And by the time I was into it, I realized this is a 3 blog series. And then I did the second tour, and then I came back and started writing it into 3 blogs. And then I was like, oh yeah, but then I need the fourth one on immigration without gentrification. And so that and the third chapter both ended up being enormous. That they turned into 2 each. So I got this 7 part uh, blog series that I wrote, and I was just like, no, this is too much to consume in this format. Nobody's going to read all these that really should if they have to keep visiting my website. I'm going to just make it in a book. I'm going to offer it, pay what you can. Um, it supports my work sharing these stories, but once I got into writing, just the floodgates opened.
Mm.
And I just realized how much I really feel people need to know. And I have a thorough nature to me, which makes me great as a consultant and systems designer. But it makes my content take forever to come out. But and I published a book within a year, so a 200-page book. So I think that's actually commendable. It's not on Kindle yet, but it's called The Community Seeker's Handbook. And the first chapter is about just expanding perspective of what community is. We talk about regional communities as well as, sovereign neighborhoods that are sharing ecological practice versus
Mm.
intentional communities that have are mission based.
Beautiful.
And just talking a little bit about the history of community movement and where it is today and how it's unique in Costa Rica a little bit. And then the second part gets into preparing oneself. Oh, and I talk a little bit about some of the different types of things like family friendly, elder friendly, those
Mm.
with the retreat center, those that really focus on bioregional
Yeah.
uh, hubbing. And then I get into self-assessment. And
Mm.
this is why this handbook really becomes like an essential read for anybody seeking community is this chapter on self-assessment. And it's really a sincere sharing of what I have seen people go through in their transformations, visiting places and living there that
Yeah.
I think are important for people to consider. And then the next one is a vetting thing. And that's where I really used AI a bit. I took all these presentations I've recorded from the Eco Village tours and all the questions
Mhm.
people have asked, all the places and all the points that seem to come through in the 50-point questionnaire I have these communities answering. And I really used AI to like what are questions that people are asking or should ask these communities when but in their different
Beautiful.
stages of vetting them, pre-visit, post-visit, etc. And so that's a powerful chapter
Yeah,
that for anyone in that process is going to save them a lot of time making asking default
question.
superficial questions.
By the way, I appreciate you doing that because it's a part of both my work and your work when we do consulting and advisory work. But that's something that, like, I'd rather tell them more unique things and more valuable things where they could just read that in a book. And I'll be sending out your book and link in our email because I just think, like, get the valuable know-how. Then let's talk about the areas that are a little more sensitive, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. And then and I know you've touched on this in your other interviews with the Alliance is the immigration without gentrification piece and how can
Yeah.
we do that? And I have I've taken it very sincerely for the last well, at the event that you were at, the Regenerative Business Incubator those years ago, we had Grau
Mhm.
and Deanna come and talk and lead a group discussion around that that lasted, I don't know, a couple
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
And that's on my YouTube for anyone who wants to watch it.
It's a phenomenal
And
conversation. Yeah.
it was great. Great foundation, good starting point. And then I had a 3 hour bilingual conversation using a software to translate, although it didn't come through in the recording, the subtitles, but we talked with people from many cultures about cultural bridge building
Beautiful.
as a remedy for neocolonialism and gentrification. And really great stuff came out there. Um, I also have had a couple dozen conversations with both Tico friends of mine as well as foreign landowner friends of mine around how can we be more inclusive? How can we be more connected? How can we be more assistive? How can we be more accepting? And these were recorded calls. I had specific questions. And so I crunched everything I learned with the beauty of AI, and I've written multiple blogs on this, or not blogs, but Facebook posts and letters to people. And so I've written extensively on this, and I brought it all together and created the last two chapters of that, which are one is just recognizing the impacts of moving to a country and how it affects the people that have been there for generations. And then the last one is just really what we can do to um, be here in a good way. And that has been now it in that book. Those what I've shared in those chapters is specific mostly to people living in community projects. There's
Hmm.
more we can do as just individuals, more finer tuned things. Again, I could
Sure.
have made it two more
Sure.
blogs long, but I will have more to say on that. And in my
You'll
newsletter, I
have a
have a lot to
second.
say about that as well.
I'll show, yeah,
That's
I'm
the
sure
book.
you'll have like a second updated edition or whatever they say, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, when I put it on Kindle, it'll definitely go through another revision. Yeah.
I think that last part would be very useful too, as a, you know, and it ties very much into the self-assessment and self-agreements. And so I do want to touch on one point that you mentioned briefly, and it's a word I've heard thrown around, and I like to redefine words because everyone's an expert. Regenerative. Until I took a course with Bill Reed from Regenesis, I had no clue what regenerative development really was in here.
Hmm.
This was not a course on building houses with bamboo. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God. And so I've thrown words like regenerative around when they have very rich meanings that I'm still exploring and discovering and like, wow, but that's that in practice and etc. And then I heard bioregional resilience, bioregional hubs, mostly in the example of the area you and me met in Costa Rica, Uvita to Chiripo, which has this, it's a bioregion with all these resources of water and culture and flora and fauna, and it's very important. I just took people's word for it and I love it. But I started understanding more about the concept of bioregions, nested holes, looking wider. What community am I really a part of when I start to
Mhm.
zoom out? Can you give like a concise definition of how you see like bioregions, biohubs, and then how like it's practical for people, like what does it mean for them?
Okay. Yeah, bioregion is one of those words that, like community, that can mean different things at different scales, you know. Um, the most common core use of the term is watershed to some
Hmm.
degree, or geographical bioregion that has some kind of confining geographical shape, be
Okay.
it water, mountains, valley. That often confines, and that's often what people will intimately in their neighborhood refer themselves as being part of.
Mm.
Chiripo, the Diamante Valley, the
Yeah.
Machuca River Valley, the Playa Ballena. So these are bioregions that are essentially geographical, and usually encapsulate some number of 3 to 7 villages.
Hmm.
I'll just
Throw it out. Yeah.
Then there's larger scope, like what you just described. Like the larger geographic region isn't just where the Chiripo River comes out of the mountain and empties into the Rio General, which is
Hmm.
what I live in and we call Chiripo Valley, or from Rivas and up. Then there's the Talamanca bioregion. So we're at the base of the Talamanca Mountains, and it comes down, or the Brunca region is another way that it's classified. And this takes basically from the mountain down through like San Isidro to like anywhere from Dominical de Quepos. And then, like you figure there's a mountain and it goes down like this. You have a pie shape of land that, its rivers go down to. So it's all this watershed expands as you get closer to the beach and reaches to what right now I'm working with a group with a bioregional finance facility program that we're calling our bioregion for the purpose of that program to
Hmm.
receive philanthropist funds to divide between smaller programs. We're taking the Brunca approach, which is uh, this bigger bioregion from the water, from the mountain down to the beach, right, including the Osa Peninsula even, because then there's also communal bioregions. What are social interactions confined to,
Yeah.
right? And that ends up being its own bioregional influencer as to what you mean when you talk about this bioregion or the other. And lastly, I mean, Costa Rica could be considered its own bioregion.
Sure, sure. And seeing that larger context. Yeah, and I think one thing that was interesting I learned on a project, and I've never seen someone go this far, and it was in the master planning and pre-development phase with an architecture firm who was Costa Rican and really cared about understanding the story of place. And it was my first project where I got to work with Regenesis Institute and Bill Reed, and just saw how slow they go to study, to talk to local people, to take data. I work with people 3 months, 4 months. Sometimes they'll do a year-long process before starting anything of a project of, yeah, doing a ton of data collection and interaction. And one of them was we saw the first 500, like we saw 500 years back of families in that area of the Baena region. All of the last names that I recognize down there, whatever it is. And it actually showed their family trees, and it showed how the land ownership has changed over the years. And even as Tico's, like when I talked to Grau, he's like, take away Americans or foreigners, and there is what people call gentrification already in our system where,
Mhm.
so he's like, for me, that's just economics of like families selling land, and there's things good and hard and bad, and you could, but overall, I really appreciated understanding the greater tapestry of what this project was a part of. And then the founder of the project going to talk to relevant stakeholders and understanding what their needs are. Really simple. Like they didn't need real estate development first. They needed a proper community center and rancho for their feria and place to meet, salon comunal. These are basic things, not in the millions of dollars. It actually became the ignition point of his project. One, you know as well as I do, it takes a while to get the money for a project. Two, doesn't take a while to start doing some good in your local community. And starting that slow process, he did, and it reconnected it was like a spiritual awakening for the founder. Like he was lit up talking to a friend that he met through the caretaker of his land that, sits on a local kind of unofficial elder council of a town, that they're part of. And he was like, whoa, this is so different than what I came here to do. And at the end, I'm actually really curious what the project becomes, because his entire thing right now is looking at the community's needs and building for that. And there's economic engines in there that are sustainable. So it's not like he became some kind of Buddha meditating on a thing. It's all good. Like he gets to do his financial necessities, help the community. But that big project he planned, I'm like, whoa, interesting how that's gonna shift. Anyway, I just look at it as when people talk about this stuff in their PDF decks, like, oh, I want to be regenerative, it's a different thing to actually do it and do the homework and do the research and
Yeah.
use AI and talk to people and whatever you need to do. Yeah, do the research. Don't just call Jason or call Ed and be like, yo, can you regenerate for me? No. Even if like I have some wealthy clients who are like, Ed, I want to do it. I'm like, do what? They're like, this whole thing, the regenerative movement, the wellness. I'm like, cool, what lights you up? Like you want to do education in kids, you want to plant fruit trees and permaculture, you want to, and it's hard. I have one buddy who specializes in that and he's in Chiripo. And I'm like, why isn't there more philanthropic capital flowing in? He's like, they don't know what they want.
Yeah.
You
They
know?
don't know what they want. And yeah, well, I'll be back to the thing.
Yeah.
People with money, generally, from what I understand, want to give their money to projects that show a clear path to sustaining themselves, if not
Correct.
being regenerative. So if you don't have the mechanisms of how you're not going to be asking for money again next year
Correct.
clearly communicable, what smart person who made a bunch of money in their life is just going to be like, here, sure, bottomless pit, here you go,
Yeah.
like, and then you're setting yourself up for sadness, disappointment, frustration, because you're just backpedaling, making mistakes and getting discouraged. So yeah, doing that foundational work is so crucial. And and to the point of like how to begin in a good way on, we're talking, bring it back into like gentrification. And when you mentioned that about what Grau had said, it reminded me also of my definition of community. And
Yeah.
I'll try to hit
Please.
them both. Community is not a place or a thing. Yes, we can refer to a thing in a place as a community, but in essence, that's just for conversation's sake. What community truly is a process of interactions. It's just a matrix of interactions. Community is a living thing. It can't, if it's dependent on any given person or condition, then it's not really a community, it's a following,
Mm.
but if there's a matrix of interactions, you can call it a community. That's why it doesn't have to be land-based. That's why here in
Sure.
Chiripo we have such a rich community, because we have enough players in our community that in autonomous ways came together to create a centralized communication hub with our 30 chat groups for every topic.
Beautiful.
And so these interactions make community. Gentrification is not about a people versus another people. It's a practice, it's an interaction or a lack thereof. It is when we move to a place, set up shop, whatever we choose we want to do in our straight line thinking, without consulting, connecting with the people that have been there for generations. And so there's a displacement. There's an inherent displacement, no matter how altruistic any of our intentions are
Yeah.
for ourselves, others, the people living there, or the people we're about to import. If we don't do a bunch of door knocking first,
Yeah.
we're gentrifying. And it doesn't matter if you're a Tico buying a property somewhere to build your whatever business you want to build, or a reality, or you want to move into a neighborhood and have more than a humble scene and have a
Yeah.
big scene and like do something in the neighborhood that's without talking to your neighbors.
Yeah.
That's gentrification. That's colonialism in a moment,
And by
right?
the way, you said that in the neighborhood, like one of my buddies in Nosara who's lived there 20 years, he just rented a small Tico house in and rented his house out. because he was like, I don't need this big house, this area. He's like, I like living, and he's very spiritual, very whatever. He doesn't do the eco village thing, which is cool. Not everyone's into it. But what I really dig is that he didn't like get like he moved into town with Ticos and he's like, I love this. These are my people. And that for me is so cool when people say, oh, Nosara is gentrified. No, you can choose how you want to live in any place
Yes.
in Costa Rica. Sure, there has been, I think, in Santa
There's
Teresa.
been a lot of
Yeah,
gentrification in Osara. There's no
yeah,
point
no
in like
question.
greenwashing
Yeah,
that or something. Like legitimately, a lot of projects came in and established themselves without talking
yeah.
and thinking about the benefit of earth care, people care, fair share. None of that on the
Infrastructure.
table.
Yeah,
That's gentrification.
yeah,
It's happening and it sucks and it's worth talking about and trying to have
100%.
happen less, which is why a remedy for that is how I write all of my materials. And um, connection is it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why cultural bridge building as a remedy for neocolonialism. And so when we come in, like Brave Earth are one of my,
Yeah,
prime examples of this. They, upon arrival, before building their retreat center,
yeah,
sent out teams of people to, in waves, week after week, little by little, knock on every door in the Pueblo and
yeah.
get to know everybody and log
Wow,
who needs what, who's got what to offer,
awesome.
who's,
Wow,
and
yeah,
they did a study of the Pueblo. Now, I could be misquoting this to some degree. This is what
sure.
I understand of what I got in my interview with them, which can be found on my podcast. The that practice for me, that's the gold standard.
Mm,
That's like if if you buy land, matter of fact, now when I've got another friend he wants to start a neighborhood development and he's asked me to help create these community agreements and so forth. Or at least guide him in that direction, whichever it ends up being. And I told him, don't buy the land.
hmm,
Don't buy it before you go door knocking to all the neighbors.
correct.
Hey, I wanted to meet you. I'm seriously considering this property, and I'd love to know what you know about it, what you've heard about it, who's been
Mm,
here before. I'm just curious.
amazing.
I want to be
Yeah.
your neighbor,
Mhm,
and I just curious, like what's going on, and spend a week or three just door knocking, getting to know people, and then after
mhm,
hearing their stories, after being interested in what their life is, tell them what you want to do
mm,
and ask them what kind of concerns that brings up. How could this benefit the Pueblo? And don't take one or two people's word on it. Talk to all of them, or at least a
beautiful.
couple dozen.
That's a good
And
advice here.
man, are you going to win?
Yeah,
You're going to start with allies surrounding your project.
beautiful.
You're going to be a winner.
Yeah,
It's not going to work out a different way because
yeah,
you're not imposing. Now, you might choose to do things that people didn't want or like, but you're not doing it uninformed.
yeah. And you're also understanding the full context of the stakeholders, their
And
needs,
you can
their
come up
care.
with solutions to meet multiple needs.
Yeah, it's such a valuable piece of advice because I've seen even well-intentioned projects do the thing and then like invite the local community in and they're like, hey, look what we're doing. And I'm like, this had to happen before you did the thing. And
Yeah.
some of them you could see like they're there, they're eating the free pound cake and whatever the but it's like, yeah, that's such a simple and beautiful way to have allies and really understand, even from a due diligence perspective. Let's put on that hat. Like, you really get to know a property, its history, who your neighbors are, which is a big deal later, in any project, personal or professional. So I love this. And I think we gave people a lot today. We definitely need a second conversation, and I
Oh
will,
man, I love talking with you, bro. I just
we,
want to throw onto that. It
yeah.
adds quality to life to your members and visitors as well when you
Mhm.
know your neighbors outside of your community well, because
Mm,
that is in like my interview with Megan Casey really showed me how much can be done to encourage entrepreneurism
Yeah.
even in small scale ways in your pueblo, supported by people coming through. So you've got this energy flow of people coming through your project, and you can harvest. Your neighbors can harvest that energy in ways that your guests are going to be grateful they were able to support the language teacher, the cooking class, the
Yeah.
homestay for a couple of nights outside your fancy place to get an authentic experience. These types of opportunities that enrich and connect the people in your pueblo. This is how you build community. This is how you avoid the gentrification issue, and walk forward in a good way and attract those kinds of people to be
Yeah.
your allies, members, and neighbors.
That's so beautiful. And my friend Talia lives in Nuevo Arenal. She's part of the Leap Forward community I mentioned. She's been there for 2 years, knows everyone in every house almost. I don't know if she went door to door every house. It's a longer town. But just seeing her like integrate with the community, and she's like, Alan wants to make strawberry jam, but he doesn't have the equipment, but he has this, or they need a new salon of this kind, or they have too many salon comunals, they need economic stuff. And just seeing her make friends and hang out, and there's no project yet. Not a commercial project in any sense like that, but I just get to see her thriving and living in this town in a house, going to her finca. We did the first planting, and actually planting out the part of the property that it will be for the community, like the local community to come and enjoy. And that kind of slow process, it maybe is a difference in the sense that we're a nonprofit. This isn't like an economically driven project in that regard. Um, but yeah, just to have that freedom and no investor chasing you down, like, hey, it's been a year, did construction start? And I tell people, somebody else, it's not my quote, but somebody on a call said to me, every dollar has a DNA.
I love that quote. Yeah,
And
it's
I'm like,
great.
wow,
It's
when there's no
important.
pressure of like, I like what you said, no investor, no person is going to look at something that's not financially responsible. But that's very different than the DNA of someone who needs to have like a 30% return a year. And
The
that
middle path.
sometimes prevents what you're saying of like the door knocking. And so yeah, I've just learned, I'm grateful for profit nonprofit projects, because I'm learning. One, I don't know yet my answer of what is community. I always say I don't know, but I'm so eager to find out. But what I have seen is the bridge building that you talked to, the interrelatedness and getting out of silos you know I don't necessarily need to answer, I think, ever like what is the one definition of community for me, because it's such a rich thing. But what I did notice, because you said it doesn't have to be in person, is we meet it as Leap Forward mostly online as a community of Black, White, Asian, rich, poor, middle class,
Meaningful interactions.
yeah, and we connect and we go deep on the phone together. We go deep when we're in person together. But the cool thing is, I always looked for like what is the glue of community, and I had like permaculture community and spiritual community, and then it looked in eco village movements as there was this blend of values. But in this one community, I saw the one part that for me so far is like a new data point. It's our glue is that this is a group of people who care about each other's evolution, health, growth, and that glue of community, like my buddy checking in on me, like saying, Ed, like, yesterday was a disaster for you on that call. You just started spewing these words. What happened to you? And I'm like, man, thank you. Like, I got so nervous. That has, I'm sure people have coaches and healers and psychologists, but when you have communities supporting you and walking you home, as you said, on your path to your soul's evolution, what a freaking glue for community. Sure, then if you later want to go live on land together and you're not at each other's throats, but that invisible glue of like, wow, this person, I might not really like how they dance, or I might not hang out with them at a party, but wow, this person cares about me so much to the point where it's annoying. My buddy corrects my spelling on WhatsApp messages. He's like, you said you wanted to be impeccable. And I'm like, Sebastian, bro, like every message, he's like, that could have been shorter. And he's right, because I asked him for that in integrity, like, help me communicate more concisely. A lot of energy and words come out. But anyway, I wanted to mention that when you like gave your definition of community, because I've been thinking about it a lot too, and I think it would be disingenuous to leave this kind of discussion without that.
Yeah, and no, I the rain's coming in a little bit. I don't know if it's bleeding through yet, if you can hear it. Um,
Good too.
but yeah, no, I love this work. I'm really grateful for that all that you're doing, because the bottom line is, and I started saying this at the beginning, I didn't finish the statement, but like
Sure.
I what motivates me, and I think you also, is that there's so many, it's so unique. It's so unique for a human being to have the volition, the even just the thought, let alone the volition, to invest into creating a land-based community project
Mm,
or a retreat center or anything that's going to be more than a little homestead, right?
sure.
It takes a lot, and it requires a lot to pull off. And its statistics say you're likely to fail. And if it's so unique that someone's going to invest their time, money, energy, heart into like a substantially regeneratively focused project and they fail, that sucks. That's such a waste. It's so, because I was the guy who didn't make it, and I saw how much we poured into. Now, granted, we hosted hundreds of people over the years. Some of
Mhm.
them are teachers in natural building now and
Mm,
permaculture expert. Like we reforested a bunch, 10 hectares.
yeah,
We did good work. We
cool.
didn't completely fail. However, um, we struggled, and you can't teach what you can't sell was one of the first, like, business growth quotes that hooked me early on. And that was so true. We held lots of workshops and festivals
Mhm.
and PDCs and all this, and we had so few students because we were rejecting organization and all of that.
Mm,
But I my work is all about trying to set people up to succeed, and that is by helping them create their member agreements in a systematic way, or helping like them get what they need most, which is members, money.
yeah,
So I bring the eco village tours. I do community connections calls that I'm like, do personal consulting and even trip planning for people looking for communities, which is great. Now these communities are like, wow, if Jason sends someone to me, this isn't a vetted, aligned person. This is
beautiful.
someone worth taking some time out to meet. This isn't just somebody who found me on the internet, right? Because I really make sure that these are aligned. And even one of my clients so far is somebody with a project who wanted to do research. And we get these people on the Eco Village tours too that want to just go research a bunch of places to see what other people are doing smart
Beautiful.
so that they can, build their projects smarter. And
Yeah,
so, all these sources, the podcast, to give people a platform to be even known
yeah.
outside of their little circle, and so I'm just going to keep doing it. I don't know how it's going to turn out, what I'm going to do next. I know what's coming next on the bioregional level, but um, the yeah, I just really am so in supportive of anybody trying to do this and who needs help in whatever way. I got lots of resources. I know a lot of cool people like Ed, that like just reach out for help.
I
That's the main
appreciate
thing, is reach out for help, accept help when it's offered. Don't push away help because it's something you had a taboo about in your early
it.
days, or that you're still carrying some chip on your shoulder because of something you saw somebody else do or somebody did
Yeah,
to you one day. Use the tools available to succeed. We need you to succeed. We want us to like turn this phenomenon into a movement. And that can
awesome.
only happen if we're not struggling to survive, to the
Mm,
point where we can start connecting and supporting each other.
beautiful, Jason. Thank you, man. And I will definitely I'll publish all the links both in the newsletter and in the podcast version of this. And I think I just want to reiterate, if you're someone building an eco village or any kind of land stewardship project, Jason's a wonderful person to work with professionally. If you're someone looking to live in any of these or around any of these projects, that tour is an amazing resource that I've wanted to see exist for ages. I realized a while ago I don't have to do everything. Like, it started kicking in. I'm like, oh, he actually did this. Like, he rode a bus back in the day. This is his thing, and I'm so supportive of it. But yeah, all of this is so useful. Even if you're starting a project, so many people have asked me, can I go visit other projects? And I'm like, this would be very expensive for me to do with you one-on-one, time wise, whatever. So the fact that somebody could go like that in a community setting and research is beautiful. And I will also share your website and info because you give away so many free goodies in your newsletter that just starting there, like I appreciate how much you give for free. It's very nice of you.
Thanks. One other thing I'll drop for your folks too. I haven't
Yeah.
set a date yet, but we did the first Community Builders Convergence
Okay.
in June at Rancho Mastatal, and it was fantastic. We had
Beautiful.
12 people come from 9 different communities, and we talked about equity sharing, community agreements, funding sources, creating a healthy communication patterns. And then we also took time to all together focus on each person there's project in a kind of a
Beautiful.
spotlight type format. It was a
Yeah.
fabulous event. We're definitely going to do it again, probably around that same time, maybe around June-ish, I think. But yeah, reach out to me if you want to know about that.
I'll
It
post
is
that.
really a meaningful event, and I know it's going to continue building and become more influential in helping this phenomenon become a movement.
I would like to come to the next one, so I'm signing up today. So thank you. Jason, thank you so much. And I'd like to have more of these chats. So I really appreciate your wisdom and your heart.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks.
Absolutely a joy hanging out with you. Thanks.